Hello and welcome to this week's episode of GIANT's Healthy Innovators TV. I'm your host. My name is Barry Shrier, and I'd like to thank all of the thousands of listeners from around the world who dial in every week to visit us and to engage with the very interesting and capable and accomplished leaders in innovation and healthcare and technology which we bring to you. Once again, my name is Barry Shrier, and I'm from a business called GIANT Health. If you like these videos, we encourage you to like and to subscribe on our YouTube channel. That will help us to help you. And we also invite you to go to our website, www.giant.health, to learn all about the GIANT Health event. This year, our annual European Festival of Healthcare, Technology and Innovation is on the 6th and 7th of December in London. And we invite everybody to go to the website, have a look at it, and we hope to meet you at the event. We'd also like to thank some of our most important sponsors and collaborators from around the year. Thank you very much to Vodafone Business, and in particular, a thank you to Burgerpack, one of our most important sponsors and supporters. This week, we're actually bringing you a number of people from Burgerpack to talk to you about some very interesting leading issues in the world of healthcare and innovation that relate to design and packaging. So first of all, I'm just going to introduce you to everybody on today's call. We have Dane and Alex and Alethea and Willemijn. So first of all, Dane Whitehurst is an international speaker, visiting lecturer, and creative director from Burgerpack. He's heading up an award-winning packaging design team. And Dane has worked with many of the world's biggest brands, helping some of the most innovative startups to launch new products through a holistic approach to packaging design. We also have with us today Alex Parker. Hello, Alex. Alex is head of design for healthcare, with a longtime Burgerpack team member and packaging expert with a focus on healthcare. We have Alethea Price, who's the marketing manager at Burgerpack. Hello, Alethea.
Hi.
Alethea is a former lecturer in psychology, and she combines her fascination for human understanding and creativity to help brands express intention and purpose in everything we do. We also have Willemijn Zandt, who's the Burgerpack project manager, tuning in from Milan. So unfortunately, we're not all in Milan today, but Willemijn, welcome, and we hope to join you in Milan one day soon. She brings years of experience in healthcare and works closely with clients all over the world to deliver successful packaging designs. So on behalf of everybody at GIANT Health and all of our listeners from around the world, hello to the Burgerpack team. Really great to have you guys with us today.
Thanks, Barry.
So to begin with, Alethea, if you could just tell us very briefly about Burgerpack. Who are you, where you guys come from, and a little bit about what you do, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So Burgerpack is a innovative design agency, specifically working on packaging. We work with brands all around the world. We're actually based in London, but we have manufacturing in 7 different places across the world. So we focus on innovation and creating exciting unboxings. And what we really try to do is work with clients to create memorable experiences where packaging is more than a product, than a box for your product, but actually it's a functional and engaging part of your whole product solution and provides messaging and is a really engaging part of your service. So
Brilliant.
that's what we focus on.
Excellent. Oh, superb. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to learn a lot more about this, and I'm sure our listeners are as well. And so if you don't mind, just love to dive straight into some of the more interesting subjects and elements relating to packaging and design. So, I mean, for example, is it safe to say that packaging today goes beyond the box? What would you say, Dane? What's your perspective on packaging, please?
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, that's a big question. And I think hopefully we're going to unpack that as we go through our kind of chat today. But I think packaging ultimately is obviously lots of different things to lots of different people. And its role, function, value, and ultimately the way it's designed will vary hugely between different applications. I think what is kind of really interesting to see is that the kind of broader appreciation of packaging, I mean that kind of in terms of the general public, has sort of vastly increased in recent years. So, and I think what's interesting as well is the viewpoint has expanded. So in past, maybe the general view of packaging might be that, it's fairly simplistic. It essentially helps to get a product from A to B without it getting destroyed. And will play some role, certainly in retail, in helping to sell that product. But nowadays, we know the conversation has greatly expanded, and the impact that packaging has on the world, both positive and negative, is more widely appreciated. The big one, obviously, being the environment, which has become a huge talking point where packaging is concerned. And for us, that's a wonderful and timely thing. I've been designing packaging for 15 years or so, and never has the importance been so widely sort of appreciated by our clients. And often it's the first thing on the brief. So the materials we use, where they come from, how we use and dispose of essentially the packaging, all the major considerations within the design process. I think that's obviously massive. The increasing value of packaging as a physical artifact, as a representation of brand, has also sort of arguably increased and become more important than ever. I think, in a world that's becoming consistently more digital, and a lot of brands that are kind of have digital first or app-based kind of services, are viewing packaging as a super important touch point to deliver, a feeling and impression of brand. And we've seen it a lot with some of the other markets we work in. So things like sort of digital banks and fintech, things like that. They're transitioning massively to embracing packaging as a way to deliver a brand touch point. And often it's the first thing that you see. And then I think finally connected to that, when we sort of think about its value as a kind of marketing tool, in terms of social media, I think it's gained huge momentum. So I think packaging as a sort of physical artifact has become, something of a billboard or a prop for people to talk about products and the experiences they've had of using them through the packaging. And so it takes on another value, again, going back into the digital realm. So it's really, really interesting. And, hope all of that we'll kind of unpack a little bit further as we go.
Absolutely. Through. Yeah. Thank you, Dane. I mean, obviously it's fascinating, isn't it? Because I think there is the risk that at the consumer level, one doesn't necessarily think about or concern themselves so much with the levels of importance and sophistication that packaging play in the overall design of a product or service. So that's extremely interesting. Thank you. Alethea, I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit. What examples have you seen where packaging plays a role in product marketing, for example?
Alethea, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Hi, Alethea, can you hear us?
I can. Let's try that again. Hello.
I'll ask the question, okay?
Thank you.
No worries. So, Alethea, if you could elaborate a little bit on what Dane just said. I mean, for example, what have you seen examples where packaging plays a role in product marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we live in a really interesting time as marketers at the moment, particularly with data compliance changing the way that we advertise and reducing the return we have on advertising. Looking for other opportunities to promote product is really important. And coining the phrase packvertising, if you like, is very much something of the moment. It's something a lot of people are talking about, and especially in the healthcare space, where your product, for example, let's say if we were talking about self-testing kits, there's a degree of elements within a self-test kit that may be very similar from one product to the other. So what can really define that product and what can really enhance both your shelf presence, your digital presence, but also your post-purchase kind of experience is your packaging. Packaging gives you that opportunity to sell, tell your story, set the mood. So if you're working in a healthcare space, for example, you probably are looking to really uplift people, have empathy and show care. And these are all things that you can do through packaging, through the messaging, through the aesthetics, the materials you use. So there's an awful lot of importance on packaging and how it can really influence that product marketing, both before purchase and afterwards.
Yes. No, that is so interesting. There's so much involved here, isn't there, which I think is very easy to overlook if you don't have expertise in the area. So thank you for sharing that, Alethea. Dane, I wanted to come back to you and just ask, so can packaging help, for example, to improve the user experience and the actual customer engagement with the product or service?
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely. We've been lucky enough to work on some really interesting projects, not only in the healthcare space, but also with a number of other sort of groundbreaking tech startups where they're launching kind of new products or which are often unfamiliar, and so it requires in that first moment the user to maybe perform an unfamiliar setup journey or know a product that they've never seen before. And I think we've seen the difficulty with things like instruction manuals. People often forget them or ignore them, or they get left in the box.
Absolutely.
And actually, you can embed a lot of that stuff within the packaging, actually creating sort of out-of-box experience, which not only feels nice, but actually tells people what to do in a much better way than something like an instruction manual could do.
Nice.
And we borrow a kind of term which was kind of coined by Toyota, the car manufacturer, which is poka-yoke. And it basically refers to a system or design intervention which basically helps to reduce or eradicate human error in a given process.
Okay.
And the interesting thing about that is you can sort of apply that rationale to any sort of process or challenge. So, and you can certainly apply it to packaging. So, if we design packaging in the right way, we can sort of think about it in that way. So, in terms of the way that we might do that, so firstly, what we have to do is break down the task or series of tasks that we're asking the user to do into manageable chunks. So we make it easier for them to understand. And then sort of joined to that, what we try and do is build hard breaks into the unboxing process. So we give people an order to take things out of the box and deliver information at the moment that they do that in order to create meaning around each of those things. And then finally, we clearly communicate those tasks. So, hand holding and signposting and just kind of giving people clear direction all the way through that process. And it really does work. For test kits and medical devices,
nice,
and things like that may involve multiple steps and don't have a huge amount of tolerance for getting things wrong, it can actually really help to improve the accuracy at which people are performing these tasks.
Yes.
And we've even seen it with simple things like bank cards. So activation of a bank card by delivering pertinent information at a very specific point in the unboxing, together with when they get the card, can actually massively improve activation. So even simple processes can really help.
Yes. I wouldn't have realized there are so many extremely interesting and, like I said, more sophisticated layers here, aren't there, in packaging. So thanks for sharing that, Dane. I wasn't aware of this concept of how packaging can play a contribution to reducing human error regarding usage of a product or service. And I can assume that in healthcare, this is unbelievably important. So, Alex, I'd like to ask you, to elaborate on that. So, for example, not only in that theme of reducing human error, but even more broadly, within the world of healthcare, for example, can packaging improve things like adherence or compliance or reliability?
Yeah, I mean, it is really interesting when you start, when you're given the opportunity to tear apart, the product and the user journey. There are so many packaging decisions you can make that will have a bearing on the success of that product. So those decisions might be the packaging format itself. So your choice between using a blister or a bottle to put tablets in. A blister might afford you the opportunity to print the days of the week or the sequence in which the tablets are taken.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So relevant.
Exactly, and it's also that visual cue when you're coming towards the end of a course of medication or of the product. So okay, now I need to refill it before I run out.
Yes.
So they refill the prescription or make the other purchase. There's human factors considerations as well. If you can't use the packaging, you're going to get in the way of someone actually being able to take the medication. Things like child-resistant packaging that we have quite a lot of experience in is, you're walking a fine line between keeping it accessible for seniors, but keeping children out. So you have this big human factors challenge to work through. And as Dane mentioned, your test kits is a really good one. You take the test incorrectly, or you take the sample collection incorrectly, and you've spoilt it. That's it. Someone needs to send out a new kit, and you need to take it again. So it's lots of steps can be built into the packaging that they're going to influence that overall success of the product.
No, that's fascinating. And I mean, the example that you just gave, Alex, is I can imagine so fundamental for the validity of a test kit. And so wherever packaging can make a contribution there. And what you mentioned as well is very interesting, the packaging cues, like, I'm running out of this product, which you don't necessarily see so easily if you're dispensing a pill from a bottle compared to a blister pack, and that type of thing. Very, very interesting and so relevant as all this packaging and delivery of products to home and the requirement for healthcare to try and move the delivery of healthcare from clinicians and hospitals and GP offices back to the patient. So these things, I think, are really growing in importance. Willemijn, I wanted to ask you to contribute as well, please. In terms of design, for example, how does packaging make a contribution? Like, for example, with consumers, are there issues of fear regarding doing a prick test or other types of testing? And how does design or packaging have an impact there?
Well, it can have a very good impact, to be honest. I think it's something that we work on daily to try and understand, for example, indeed about these prick tests, exactly, what is the process and how can we make this as easy as possible to perform. But in terms of how people feel when they do these kinds of things, I think packaging plays a major role there in the bridge between otherwise pretty boring looking medical devices that then need to be used to perform a test. And I think people can easily feel very overwhelmed when opening packaging, and for example the whole content falls out onto the table, and here we have lancets and what have you, and microtainers and so on and so forth, and plasters and swabs, and then you might already feel slightly anxious. And if that then is actually neatly presented still, or even left behind a lid, that's going to make somebody feel less overwhelmed, perhaps, if they were feeling overwhelmed already.
Sure.
But there's also other emotions or feelings that might happen when you open this and you start doing a test. For example, embarrassment. Some of this also comes across and requires sometimes a little bit more of a discreet way of designing the way the packaging looks. There's many things to keep in mind when you design these things, and often, again, the medical device world, I'm sure, is changing and evolving, but it's mostly and mainly designed for the use for a physician, not for somebody at home. And so packaging becomes that bridge between something that might hopefully in the future look much more user-friendly to, in the meantime, trying to help people along to do this at home at their own pace, when they feel confident and secure in taking this test and do it correctly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, that is very, very interesting. That issue about packaging historically focusing on perhaps the needs or the skills of the clinician, and the required transition there is crucial. I think we can see quite clearly how unbelievably important and potentially impactful physical packaging is. And thanks, you guys. I'm learning an awful lot already and finding this conversation super interesting. But Alethea, I wanted to ask you to help our listeners understand physical packaging, obvious, the impact, what we've been discussing already. But what about digital products or app-based brands and services? Where does packaging come in there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we're in the healthcare space, we're actually rocketing towards digital, aren't we? Especially when we look at the services in the home, the self-service, the kind of empowerment of people to look after their own healthcare. So there's a huge amount of movement into that space.
Yes.
One of the challenges, though, that then comes with that is the lack of physicality. And combining touch points in the home, whether that's through a device like Willemijn mentioned that then connects through to an app,
Yeah.
or whether it's, again, your test kits we mentioned earlier, or any other range of products. We're getting an awful lot of personalized products as well that it combine that digital aspect. Packaging kind of plays that middle ground where you are able to connect the two, whether you're doing that through smart packaging that provides, an virtual reality or a QR code that teaches you more information.
Okay.
So there's that side of things where it can be more educative and kind of combine those two elements of your product. But then the biggest bit for me is also reminding ourselves that we live in a very social world now, and it's a digitally social world. And 92% of any new prospective customers, 92% of them will look for comments, they'll look for feedback online before they commit to a purchase, right?
Wow.
And a lot of that will be on social media.
Yes.
So finding ways where you can provide an opportunity to engage on a social platform is really, really important. And packaging can provide that physical experience that is organic, and it encourages user generated content. We're all very familiar with the unboxing today. Everyone knows what YouTube is. Everyone has seen 100 different unboxings, but the reality is that box is really important in that experience, and it provides an opportunity to build communities, especially if you think about people who are doing things at home, probably in isolation.
Sure.
It gives them an opportunity to connect with other people who are also having this experience, or for potentially new people who are curious about DNA, or they're curious about optimizing their physical health. What supplements can they take? These are great opportunities to create organic, authentic advocates for your brand.
Nice.
And it's just a really wonderful endorsement that you can encourage. And there is also the risk, you can't always guarantee what people are going to say about you. When it's authentic, that's the point. But
Yes.
by providing a physical experience that is enriched with strong messaging that maybe builds on culture or community, or it gives an aesthetic that tells a story about your product and what you're trying to achieve.
Yep.
You hopefully encourage the right messaging, and you have good advocates for your brand, and that really helps build trust, especially when
No, I can see
especially
how
right
important
now.
that is. I mean, that trust theme, of course, is just profound for every brand, isn't it? And so
And
to be
healthcare.
able to carry on from that, I think is crucial for everybody that's involved in providing products and services like that. I'd love to develop further the what do you want to call it, the physical to digital and digital back to physical relationship, because I think this is so new, and I think a lot of our listeners are quite keen to continue learning more about that. So Alex, I'm wondering if you could add here. So let's say, for example, if you have brand values that are fundamentally expressed through digital touch points, how do you embed those back into physical packaging design, for example?
Yeah, again, it's another really interesting discussion, and one you could have probably a whole lecture series on.
Yes. Well, we should do that. How about if a couple of months from now, you guys all come back and we're going to do a whole session on this?
Yeah, we could do. We've got a series of bullet points here. So
no, I love it. Love it.
Sounds good to me.
But it's really interesting, and it might be that the packaging itself, or what's being delivered in the packaging, is the only physical touch point with the brand. So it carries an enormous weight. And you can imagine, a company spent a fortune on this super slick digital platform that you go through, and it's so quick and efficient and amazing.
Yes.
And if you were to receive a piece of packaging that was all of a sudden felt a bit flimsy, was difficult to use, it doesn't matter. All those other steps have kind of been tarnished by that poor piece of packaging.
Sure.
And you have that in hand, and you're looking at it, and you're looking at the website, and there's a discrepancy between, what you've received and what's on screen. So it's things like you've got to. It's got to reflect the product. So through the physical nature of the packaging or the artwork, you can be playful, you could be somber. What's appropriate there. You build in strength and robustness to something to reflect the product if appropriate. Your choice of materials, the tactility, whether it's shiny, whether it's matte, these all are really important. The unboxing of the product itself is really, really important. Again, you can sort of cover that experience to a certain extent. Another, really great thing about packaging is, if you have a sustainability story, everyone has a sustainability story. Your choices in packaging, if a customer has to receive something, how you choose to deliver it to them can be an extension of that sustainability story. So, the use of FSC materials, or reducing packaging bulk, doing what you can to make the receipt, and if there's a return process, as efficient, materially and functionally as possible. It's fascinating, and it goes on and on. And I guess, if you buy an iPhone, you wouldn't expect it to come in a jiffy bag.
No.
It'd be a very different experience. And if you translate that back to to what we're talking about here, it will transform your experience.
Yeah, no, that what do you want to call it? The emotional impact of the physicality of the packaging and the relationship between that and the digital brand is extremely interesting, isn't it? And probably quite tricky to get right. And no, thank you, Alex. And Alex, you touched on sustainability. So Dane, I'd love to hear more about that. In healthcare, of course, we hear an awful lot about how the healthcare sector, of course, is huge, and it is a vast consumer of resources. It's a gigantic polluter, so to speak. And these are important issues, I think, for healthcare services around the world. And there's a strong ambition to address these. So where does sustainability fit in within healthcare packaging?
Yeah, thanks, Barry. I mean, it's a huge subject. So obviously, the healthcare industry is massive, and there's some really big challenges that we face in packaging. I think there are some positive things coming through, though. I think until the last couple of years, for almost all packaging projects that we were involved in, sustainability was sort of viewed as almost peripheral, like kind of a nice to have,
right?
As long as it doesn't cost anything extra.
Yes.
And I think that has changed. I think brands and companies are much more actively engaged and are bringing sustainability to the surface in terms of what's being mentioned and highlighted in a brief. And I think part of the reason for doing that is kind of general kind of consumer awareness, and particularly amongst younger demographics, and they're kind of driving this change. It's not just about can we do something a bit better that doesn't cost anything extra? It's like, we can't afford to be left behind because people are demanding more. So it's kind of, for us, it sort of feels like it's sort of this collective challenge, and you can't bury your head in the sand and ignore this. We're all in this together, and I think it's a really important issue to engage with. And I think, as a packaging company, we obviously feel a huge amount of responsibility to try and address some of these challenges. So we've done a few things, for example. So we have an internal task force that we set up that basically is kind of tasked with kind of learning about new materials, processes, manufacturing techniques, and constantly kind of driving change and improvement of our own products.
Nice.
And services and how we develop that is, it's a really interesting area, and I think it throws up really interesting challenges to engage with. It's another really interesting element to the brief.
Yes.
I think we're pushing it even one stage further now. So we're actually working with a partner to basically create almost like a calculator, if you like, to basically calculate the carbon footprint for every single one of every product we design.
Oh, nice.
And it factors in everything from, which materials we use, where they come from, how the the packaging is produced, and transportation and everything, and it kind of gives you an overall kind of value, which is, at the moment, it's the intention really is to just inform our customers, to build context around the choices that they're making.
Yes.
Try, help them to, if their sustainability is on the brief, how do we engage with that, and how do we
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I can see that this is very important, and surely it's growing in importance, like you said, and maybe 5 or 10 years from now, there will be, what do you want to call it, sustainability badges or dials or color codes on packaging, which not only incorporate the carbon footprint of the packaging, but the product and everything. So that's kind of the way that the world is going, isn't it? So I can see how this is developing in importance. And it's also cool to see how Burgerpack is taking a leadership role in this. Moving on from sustainability, there's what do you want to call it? Emotionally sensitive issues, aren't there, for healthcare products and services? And so, Alex, I just wanted to ask you to comment on that. Obviously, there are some aspects of healthcare and issues that individual patients are experiencing where there are possibly, social stigmas, things like hair loss, not put too fine of a point on it, fertility, erectile dysfunction, and this type of thing. So what can packaging and, for example, branding and design do to help issues like that, where you have patient self-care issues, but with another layer of social stigma, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be part of a bigger movement where, brands, charities, government organizations are encouraging positive conversation around health in general, healthcare, wellness, mental health in its entirety. And I think that is, it's hugely important. And I think that has, it has trickled into packaging. So I guess, it's that positive conversation, giving brands having a different approach to wellness or healthcare products beyond that pure clinical look. And by changing the appearance and the presentation, it's giving people different ways customers, patients, different ways to maybe discuss or engage with the brand and the product.
Yeah.
And you'll have seen lots of different brands have a different, a different marketing style or a different approach to it. And I think it gives people choices. Someone might identify with a brand and they might align with that and therefore buy or use products from them. It's a spectrum, isn't it? At one end, there might be loud and brash and filled with humor. And at the other end, it might be just flipping something from a clinical look to a wellness product. And it's not you've been given a diagnosis and you will live with this diagnosis. It's more, I'm just taking control of my wellness and I'll take this alongside, other, wellness products. And it's a lifestyle choice. And I'm happy with that. But, I think discretion and choice is hugely important, and that's why we're always going to see this, a spectrum of different brands and approaches out there.
Yes, yeah, no, that's very interesting. The sensitivities here, and like you said, the choice issue is quite profound and very important from a commercial perspective for the product marketing organization, isn't it? So yeah, thanks for that, Alex. Willemijn, I just wanted to ask you as well to elaborate on that, and I guess the broader issues we're talking about regarding brand and the value add of brand. How do these things help to justify the investment that businesses need to make or should consider making when it comes to packaging choices they have?
Indeed, they should consider it. I think, I think presentation is everything when it comes to conveying value.
Right.
And when it comes to winning the trust of, the brand that you've decided to go and buy a test from.
Yes.
So I can see that if you've just spent, let's say you've just spent £75 on some sort of test kit,
right,
that's going to tell you what your general level of health is, or fitness, or other more specific things. You have completely different expectations than when you have just ordered something as cheaply as possible to get you a fit to fly certificate, which we've all done, or many of us might have done actually.
Yep.
And so you get completely different journeys there too, and totally different expectations. So, and I think that really is important to work out, what am I trying to convey as a brand? How can I meet the expectations of the other, of the one receiving it? And most of all, I think many people have to understand who are doing a brand. Health is so personal to people.
Absolutely.
And it requires so much trust. So here I am sending my DNA through Royal Mail. And if I feel that pack is going to open, or, in one way, shape or form, that the test analysis is going to be swapped with somebody else because it doesn't look like this brand might be very organized, these are the kinds of things that you just, as a brand, I think, especially in the healthcare sphere, would like to avoid. And you can really be very sure, I think, that if you
Absolutely.
work on this and you invest in it, there will be a return rather than a negative storyline.
Yeah, for sure. I think that a lot of the very interesting and fundamental issues that you guys have been raising in the conversation, not only about the physical packaging, but about the branding and the relationship between physical and digital, are just highlighting how very, very central this is for any product, and whether it's a physical product or a digital product. And in terms of the relationship, especially in healthcare, like you've said, Willemijn, regarding how personal healthcare is, and the risks, like you said, of sending your DNA through the Royal Mail and that type of thing. So, so important. Let's try to summarize some of that, Dane, in terms of the thinking that businesses should be going through. When should one start to think about these issues? If you are involved in developing products or services that have any type of packaging involvement, when should one start thinking about this?
I mean, honestly, Barry, way earlier than you might think.
Not the day before you ship?
Possibly not.
No.
I think with the danger, there's kind of a danger almost with packaging, that it's kind of viewed as simplistic and therefore quick
Definitely.
to design and produce, which is understandable. I think sometimes it's particularly true of kind of companies that generally have a digital product, because the process is different, right? You create something, you execute it, you deploy it, it's done. There's no lag.
Yes.
But packaging, you have to kind of view it as a really, it's a bespoke product in many ways, and there's things about it being physical that have lead times associated with them. So, you have to procure materials, you have to manufacture, print, die cut, produce, assemble the packaging, and you may have to move it at some way around the world. And so all of those things have a lead time, and that's before you even build in, the design process at the beginning, and sending them out to the customer. So there's kind of lots of things to kind of consider in that journey, and it's easy to sort of forget that, I think. There's also other reasons as well. I've worked on kind of packaging projects where the packaging has been considered really early, and actually it's helped to inform the design of the product itself. So we start talking about the packaging, and actually we realize that the product is susceptible to damage. It's maybe bigger than it could be. It doesn't fit through a letterbox.
Yes.
A whole host of different kind of things. And you're like, actually, we've caught this early, and we can rethink the product slightly to help improve not just the packaging and the cost associated with that, but actually the product itself as well.
Nice.
So thinking about it early is, hugely beneficial. The worst thing that's going to happen is, someone's going to say, come back and speak to us in 3 months. That's fine. It's better to engage early, I think, always.
Oh, Dane, thank you so much. That's extremely, extremely helpful advice. And so, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you guys from Burgerpack. This has been so incredibly interesting. I've learned loads, and I think that the information you guys have very generously shared with our community is invaluable. I certainly would like to encourage all of our listeners from around the world to reach out to Burgerpack and talk to you guys if our listeners have any questions. As you know, GIANT Health is a community of nearly 300,000 people now, people around the world working in healthcare, tech, innovation. And I have a strong hunch that an awful lot of our listeners do have packaging design requirements, or if nothing else, Dane, they should be thinking about it now rather than phoning you at the last minute. So Willemijn and Alex and Dane and Alethea, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your time. This has been extremely informative, not only learning about the important physical aspects of packaging, but the branding issues and the relationship between that and the digital products, and what we've learned about how to deal with sensitive issues for patients, where the delivery of healthcare is, of course, a very private and personal thing, which sometimes even includes a social stigma issue. So once again, thanks you guys. On behalf of everybody at GIANT Health, we're extremely grateful to Burgerpack for sponsoring us last year at the GIANT Health event. Very keen to continue building our relationship with you guys. And also on behalf of all of our listeners, I'd like to encourage everybody to visit the Burgerpack website. As a reminder, it's Burgerpack with a K. So it's Burgerpack, Burgopak. And you'll also be able to find the links to their business and contact details at the bottom of this video on the GIANT YouTube channel. So thanks again, once again, everybody. Grateful for your time. Thanks for your sponsorship. And once again, I'm Barry Shrier from GIANT Health. We encourage all of our listeners to visit the GIANT website, www.giant.health, and also to consider coming to our big European event on the 6th and 7th of December, which is in London. And you can learn more about that from the website. And so thank you for listening. This has been this week's episode of GIANT's Healthy Innovators TV. And we've had some very, very interesting conversations from the team at Burgerpack. This week's episode has been Ask the Packaging Experts. So thanks, you guys. Very interesting.
Thanks, Barry.
Thanks, Barry. Great speaking to you.
Thanks.
Thank you.